I thanked my grandfather for the $199 check. He stopped carving the turkey, looked me straight in the eye, and said the gift I wired you was $475,000. So my grandfather stopped carving the turkey, set down the knife like he was defusing a bomb, and said the gift he wired me was $475,000. I actually laughed because the envelope my mother had slipped me an hour earlier contained a check for $200. My name's Austin Blake. I'm 31, and I hunt digital thieves for a living. Cybersecurity analyst at Sentinel Tech in Denver. I've tracked cryptocurrency fraud across 17 countries, helped the FBI recover $4.2 million in ransomware payments, and testified in federal court 4 times. I know how to follow money through the darkest corners of the internet. Turns out the biggest theft of my career was happening at my own family's Thanksgiving table. 3 days before the holiday, my sister Rachel called. I was in my apartment, 3 monitors glowing with code while I tracked a phishing operation out of Estonia. Her voice had that particular brightness that always made me suspicious. The tone she uses when she wants something, but pretends she doesn't. "Hey, Austin," she said. "Nobody calls me Austin except her. Everyone else uses my middle name. Listen, about Thanksgiving. Maybe you should skip it this year." I paused the trace I was running. "Why?" "Grandpa's really tired lately. The doctor said he shouldn't have too much excitement. You know how he gets when you visit. Wants to stay up talking, show you his old maps, tell those stories about Korea." She laughed, but it sounded fake. "We're thinking a quiet holiday. Just the local family. I live in Denver. My family's in Bridgeport, Connecticut. About 2,000 miles. Very convenient distance I've maintained since graduating college." "Since when does Grandpa want quiet?" I asked. "Since he turned 87 and his cardiologist told Mom he needs to reduce stress." That part might have been true. Grandpa Robert Mitchell Blake, decorated veteran, retired civil engineer, the only person in my family who'd ever actually listened to me, had been slowing down. But requesting I skip Thanksgiving? That didn't track. "Also," Rachel continued, "you should probably save the airfare money. I know consulting pays well, but those flights from Denver aren't cheap." There it was. Rachel had never in her entire 33 years worried about my finances. She'd borrowed $3,000 from me in 2019 for a business opportunity that turned out to be a multi-level marketing thing. Never paid me back. When I'd asked about it 6 months later, she told me I was being petty about money between siblings. "I'll think about it," I said. "Great. Love you. Bye." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a long moment, staring at my screens. Something was wrong. That conversation had the same rhythm as the phishing emails I analyzed. All the right words, but the underlying code was malicious. I opened my banking app and checked the joint account Grandpa had set up for me when I turned 18. He'd seeded it with $5,000, told me it was for emergencies. "You're smart with money, Austin," he'd said. "This is just in case you ever need a cushion." I'd used it once during junior year of college when my laptop died 2 days before finals. Paid it back within 6 months. Since then, I hadn't touched it. The balance showed $2,347. That seemed about right. The original $5,000 minus the laptop loan, plus 13 years of minimal interest. But something made me click through to the full transaction history. My stomach dropped. August 14th, 2024. Incoming wire transfer. $475,000. Memo. For Austin. With love, Grandpa. August 15th, 2024. Outgoing wire transfer. $474,800. Destination. External account ending in 7392. Memo. Investment opportunity. I stared at the screen. $475,000. Gone in 24 hours. The account currently showed $2,347 because someone had left just enough to avoid triggering a zero balance alert that might have sent me a notification. My hands were shaking. I set down my coffee mug carefully, like it might shatter. I called the bank. Got transferred 3 times before reaching someone in fraud prevention. "Mr. Blake, I'm showing that wire was initiated with valid login credentials and 2-factor authentication." The representative said her name was Patricia. She sounded tired. "Do you not recognize this transaction?" I didn't make it. "The IP address shows Bridgeport, Connecticut. Is that a location you visit regularly?" "My family lives there, but I haven't been there since July." "I see. And you're certain you didn't authorize anyone to access this account on your behalf?" "Completely certain." She paused. I could hear typing. "Mr. Blake, we also have a document on file. A power of attorney form signed by you on August 10th, granting authorization to..." More typing. "Catherine Blake. Would that be your mother?" The room tilted. "I never signed a power of attorney. The signature matches our records." Then the signature is forged. More typing. Longer this time. I'm flagging this account for investigation. You'll need to file a formal fraud report. I'm sending you a link now. I'm also going to need you to verify your identity with several security questions. The verification took 20 minutes. By the time I hung up, my coffee was cold, and the Estonian fishing operation I'd been tracking had gone dark, probably relocated to a different server farm. I pulled up the power of attorney document the bank had emailed me. It was a PDF. Decent quality, all the right legal language. The signature at the bottom looked like mine. Same looping B, same sharp vertical stroke on the A. But I knew I hadn't signed it. I have a very specific habit. When I sign legal documents, I always add a tiny diagonal mark in the upper right corner of the signature block. Invisible unless you're looking for it. A paranoid quirk I developed after seeing too many contract disputes in the tech world. This signature had no mark. I zoomed in. The ink pressure was wrong. Too uniform. This was a digital composite, probably created by scanning multiple signatures and stitching them together. Professional work. Not professional enough. I pulled up the destination account number from the wire transfer. External account ending in 7392. Most banks only show partial account numbers for security, but I had tools for this. 15 minutes of database queries and some creative use of financial APIs gave me the full account. Brandon Hayes. Account opened at First National Bank Bridgeport branch on August 2, 2024. I searched the name. LinkedIn profile. Investment consultant. 35 years old. Columbia MBA. Founder of Hayes Capital Management. Professional headshot showing a guy with perfect teeth and a suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. And there in his recent activity, excited to announce my engagement to the incredible Rachel Blake. Here's to new beginnings. The post was dated August 20th, 6 days after my money disappeared. I clicked through to Rachel's Instagram. It was public. She'd never understood privacy settings. The feed was a timeline of destruction disguised as lifestyle content. August 16th. Photo of crystal clear water, white sand, palm trees. Caption read, "Much needed reset in the Maldives. Blessed, our paradise." The comment section was full of congratulations from her friends. "So happy for you, babe. You deserve this. Living your best life." None of them knew they were celebrating with stolen money. August 17th. A boomerang video of champagne being poured into crystal flutes on a private beach. No caption, just a series of celebration emojis. The bottle in the background? Dom Perignon. I could make out the label. $300 a bottle minimum. August 18th. Sunset over an infinity pool. Her silhouette against orange and pink sky. Grateful for this moment. The location tag showed the residences at Waldorf Astoria, Maldives. I looked it up. Overwater villas starting at $2,000 per night. They'd been there 3 days at that point. $6,000 just on accommodation, not counting the flights, the food, the drinks, the activities. August 19th. Close-up of a breakfast spread. Tropical fruits, fresh pastries, coffee service on fine china. Another morning in paradise. The breakfast alone probably cost more than what most people spend on groceries in a week. August 20th. The engagement photo. A close-up of her left hand. A massive diamond catching the sunlight, throwing rainbow prisms across the image. He asked. I said yes. Engaged. Happily ever after. The ring dominated the frame. She'd angled her hand just right, made sure every facet was visible. I zoomed in on the ring. Emerald cut. Had to be at least 3 carats, maybe closer to 4. Platinum band with smaller diamonds along the sides. The kind of ring you see in magazine spreads, not real life. Conservative estimate? $30,000. Could easily be 40. My $30,000. Maybe my 40,000. I took screenshots of everything. Built a folder. Started mapping the money trail with the same methodical precision I used for corporate investigations. August 14th. Grandpa wires $475,000 into joint account. August 15th. Money transferred to Brandon Hayes' account. August 16th. Rachel posts from the Maldives. Flight records. I have access to certain databases through work, strictly for legitimate security purposes, showed 2 first-class tickets from JFK to Mail, Maldives, purchased August 14th. Travelers, Rachel Blake and Brandon Hayes. Cost, $18,400. August 20th, engagement announcement. Ring purchased from Cartier Manhattan. Credit card records are surprisingly easy to find if you know where to look and have the right credentials. This was arguably a gray area of legality. I didn't care. The pattern was clear. Rachel had somehow convinced Grandpa to wire me money, probably told him I needed it for something, knowing he'd never refuse. then immediately siphoned it into her fiancé's account and spent it on a luxury vacation and engagement ring. But the power of attorney signature bothered me. That wasn't Rachel's style. She was impulsive, reckless with money, but she wasn't sophisticated enough to forge legal documents. I pulled up the document again, studied the signature more carefully. The digital composite was good, but there was something else. Tiny inconsistencies in the pen pressure, microscopic variations in ink density that suggested this had been practiced. Someone had traced my signature multiple times before creating the final version. I compared it to Mom's handwriting. She'd sent me a birthday card last year. I'd kept it because she'd actually remembered, which was rare enough to be notable. The capital letters matched, the way the downstroke on the B curved slightly inward, the specific angle of the cross on the T. My mother had forged my signature. I sat back in my chair. Outside my window, Denver sprawled in the November afternoon light. Traffic moving on, I-25. People going about their lives with no idea that mine had just imploded. My phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. So you're definitely not coming Thursday, right? Just want to make sure so Mom doesn't overbuy food. I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I typed. Actually, I changed my mind. I'll be there. Her response came fast. Really? Are you sure? I thought you said work was crazy right now. I'd never said that. Work can wait, I typed. Family's important. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Okay, great. See you Thursday. I booked a flight, packed my laptop, a portable projector I used for work presentations, and printed every piece of evidence I'd gathered. Bank statements, wire transfer records, the forged power of attorney, screenshots of Rachel's Instagram, credit card receipts, flight records. 47 pages total. I put them in a leather portfolio that Grandpa had given me when I graduated college. The irony wasn't lost on me. On Wednesday, I landed at JFK and rented a car. Drove to Bridgeport in the kind of cold rain that makes November in Connecticut feel like the world is ending. The windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm. The highway was gray and wet and miserable. I checked into a Hampton Inn 15 minutes from my parents' house. Room 214, overlooking the parking lot. Generic hotel art on the walls. The smell of industrial cleaning products. I'd stayed in 1,000 rooms just like this for work. This time felt different. I spent the evening building a presentation on my laptop, sitting at the small desk by the window. Outside, headlights swept across wet pavement. Inside, I was constructing a bomb. Title slide, Family Investment Opportunity, a case study in wire fraud. Subtitle, How $475,000 became $200. I organized the evidence chronologically. The wire transfer, the Instagram posts, the flight records, the engagement ring purchase, the forged power of attorney. Each slide building on the last, creating an undeniable pattern of theft and deception. I practiced the timing. 12 minutes for the full reveal, with strategic pauses for maximum impact. I'd given presentations to boardrooms full of executives, testified in court with hostile defense attorneys trying to poke holes in my analysis, explained complex cybercrimes to juries who didn't understand how email worked. This should have been easier. It wasn't. These were people I'd grown up with. My sister who taught me to ride a bike when I was 6, running alongside me on the sidewalk outside our house until I got my balance. My mother who'd driven me to robotics club every Saturday for 3 years in middle school sat in parking lots reading magazines while I learned to code. My father who, well, Dad had never been particularly involved, but he'd shown up to my high school graduation, applauded when they called my name. That had to count for something, right? But they'd stolen from me. Not just the money, though $475,000 was nothing to dismiss. They'd stolen my grandfather's gift, his trust, his desire to help me build a future, his pride in seeing me succeed, and they'd done it so casually, so easily, like it was nothing, like I was nothing. The anger felt clean, justified. I'd spent my entire career tracking down people who took what didn't belong to them. This was no different. Family didn't get a free pass on fraud. I ran through the presentation one more time, checking the timing, made sure each piece of evidence would be visible on the wall, confirmed the audio file would play clearly. Everything had to be perfect. No room for doubt. No opportunity for them to spin this into misunderstanding or confusion or honest mistake. Thursday morning, I drove to my parents' house at 2 p.m. Dinner was at 4. Mom had texted the schedule the night before, very specific. Apps at 4, turkey at 5, dessert by 6:30, very organized. Very controlled. Very Catherine Blake, who'd color-coded her calendar since I was old enough to remember and couldn't stand when things deviated from the plan. I parked on the street instead of the driveway. Wanted a clean exit route if needed. Carried my laptop bag up the front walk. The weight of it felt significant. Evidence. Ammunition. Justice. The house looked exactly like it always had. Cream-colored colonial, black shutters. The maple tree in the front yard that I'd climbed as a kid until I fell and broke my wrist in 4th grade. The same brass door knocker shaped like a pineapple that Mom had bought at an antique store in Vermont. The same welcome mat that said blessed and grateful in cursive script. Normal. Innocent. A perfect disguise for what had happened inside these walls. Mom opened the door before I could knock. She'd probably been watching for my car. Austin, you made it. She pulled me into a hug that felt practiced, rehearsed, like she'd thought about exactly how to greet me, how long to hold the embrace, what expression to wear. I'm so glad you decided to come after all. Wouldn't miss it, I said. The irony tasted bitter. She was wearing her nice sweater, the cashmere one with the pearl buttons that she only brought out for holidays and church. Her hair was done professionally, styled and sprayed into place. Makeup carefully applied. There was something brittle in her smile, though. Something tight around her eyes. Stress, maybe. Or guilt. Rachel's in the kitchen, she said, leading me inside. Brandon is here too. I know you haven't met him yet. He's wonderful. You'll love him. The way she said it made my skin crawl. That forced enthusiasm. That desperate need for me to approve, to accept, to validate. She was selling me on him before I'd even shaken his hand. I followed her inside. The house smelled exactly like Thanksgiving always smelled. Turkey roasting, stuffing with sage and onions, pumpkin pie cooling on the counter. The smell of my childhood, the smell of family traditions and happy memories. It felt like a lie now. Grandpa was in his usual chair by the fireplace, the worn leather recliner he'd owned for 30 years, reading the newspaper with his reading glasses perched on his nose, the same way he'd read the paper every single day for as long as I'd known him. When he looked up and saw me, his whole face brightened. The transformation was instant. Pure joy. Austin. There's my boy. I crossed the room, hugged him carefully. He felt frailer than the last time I'd seen him back in July. Bones more prominent under his cardigan, shoulders narrower, the aging process accelerating in that way it does when people hit their late 80s. But his grip was still strong when he squeezed my arm, his eyes still sharp and alert. How's Denver treating you? He asked. Good. Really good. Working on some interesting cases. Still catching the bad guys? Always. He smiled, proud. That's my grandson. Justice before everything. The words hit harder than they should have. Justice before everything. He'd told me that my whole life, when I'd gotten in fights with kids who were bullying smaller classmates, when I'd reported a professor in college for changing grades, when I'd chosen cybersecurity over higher-paying corporate jobs because I wanted to actually make a difference. Justice before everything. I was about to prove I'd been listening. Rachel appeared from the kitchen, Brandon trailing behind her like an expensive accessory. She'd lost weight since I'd last seen her. The kind of weight loss that comes from stress and green juices and not eating. The engagement ring caught the light, throwing tiny rainbows across the wall. Austin. She hugged me too, and I felt her stiffen slightly when I didn't pull away fast. This is Brandon. Brandon, my little brother Austin. Brandon extended a hand. Great to finally meet you. Rachel talks about you all the time. His handshake was firm, practiced. Investment consultant handshake. Everything about him was practiced. The smile. The eye contact, the way he stood with his shoulders back and chest open, confidence that came from never being told no. Congratulations on the engagement, I said. Thanks, man. She's 1 in a million. He pulled Rachel close, kissed the top of her head. She glowed, actually glowed. Either she was a better actress than I'd given her credit for, or she'd compartmentalized the theft so completely that she'd convinced herself it hadn't happened. Dad was in the den watching football with the volume on mute. He looked up when I walked in, nodded. Austin, good to see you. You too, Dad. We didn't have much else to say to each other. We never had. Mom announced appetizers. We gathered in the dining room. The table was set with the good china. Candles lit. Everything picture perfect. Grandpa sat at the head of the table, Mom and Dad on either side, Rachel and Brandon across from me. The conversation was aggressively normal. Brandon talked about a recent golf trip to Scotland. Rachel described her new position at some marketing firm. Mom discussed her book club's current selection. Dad stayed quiet, picking at his food. I waited. Finally, Mom stood up. I almost forgot. Austin, Grandpa wanted me to give you something. She disappeared into the kitchen, came back with an envelope. White, business-sized. My name written on the front in her handwriting. From Grandpa, she said quietly, pressing it into my hand. Don't mention the amount. He's a bit embarrassed that things are tight this year. I opened the envelope. Inside was a check. Pay to the order of Austin Blake, $200. Written in my mother's handwriting. Signed with Grandpa's shaky signature. The room waited for my reaction. I looked at Grandpa. He was watching me with that warm, proud expression I'd known my whole life. Thank you, I said. This is really generous. Mom's shoulders relaxed. Rachel took a sip of water. Brandon checked his phone. We moved to the living room for dinner. Turkey on a platter. Sides and serving dishes. Everything orchestrated like a Norman Rockwell painting. Grandpa carved while Mom directed traffic, making sure everyone had the right portions. Rachel launched into a story about her wellness retreat from last month. The sunrise meditation sessions were absolutely transformative. I feel like I'm finally learning to be present, to really appreciate the moment. Brandon nodded along. She came back a completely different person. More centered, more herself. I wondered if he knew the retreat had cost $14,000 of my money. Probably. He seemed like the kind of guy who checked receipts. Mom caught my eye. Austin, you should try something like that. All that computer work. You need to learn to enjoy life. Disconnect sometimes. I enjoy life just fine, I said. Do you? You're always working. Always so serious. Life isn't just about chasing criminals in cyberspace. The irony was extraordinary. Dad poured himself more sparkling cider. Fourth glass. Grandpa stood up, tapping his water glass with a fork. I'd like to make a toast. The table quieted. I'm an old man, he began. I've lived 87 years, fought in a war, built bridges that are still standing, raised a family. But one of my greatest joys has been watching my grandchildren grow into the people they're meant to be. He looked at Rachel, then at me. Rachel, you've always known what you wanted and gone after it. That determination will serve you well in marriage and in life. She smiled, tears forming. And Austin. His voice grew thicker with emotion. You've always been my quiet one. Thoughtful, principled. You don't take shortcuts. You do things right, even when it's hard. That's rare these days. My throat felt tight, which is why, he continued, I wanted to help you take the next step. Buy a house. Start your own firm if that's what you want. You've earned it. And I hope the gift I gave you will make that dream a little easier to reach. He raised his glass. To Austin. May you build something lasting. Everyone raised their glasses. I raised mine. Thank you, Grandpa, I said clearly. Thank you so much for the $200. His smile faltered. The table went still. What? $200? He asked. I pulled the check from my pocket, held it up. This check, the one Mom gave me before dinner. From you. $200. Grandpa's face changed. Confusion shifted to something darker. Catherine, what is he talking about? Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Dad, you're confused. You said things were tight. The gift I wired Austin was $475,000. Silence. Absolute, crushing silence. Brandon's glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Rachel had gone completely white. Dad was staring at his plate like it might contain answers. Mom's face had crumpled into something desperate. Dad, you're not remembering correctly. Mom tried again, her voice rising. Your medication. The doctor said it can cause confusion. I'm not confused. Grandpa's voice cut through the room like a blade. I transferred $475,000 into Austin's account on August 14th. I got the confirmation email. I saved it. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, started scrolling. Mom stood up. Dad, please, let's talk about this privately. You're getting upset. Show me the account, Austin, Grandpa said, ignoring her. Pull it up right now. I already had my laptop out of my bag. Opened it. The screen glowed blue in the candlelit room. I pulled up the bank statement, rotated the laptop so Grandpa could see. August 14th, incoming wire, $475,000. August 15th, outgoing wire, $474,800. Current balance, $2,347. Grandpa stared. His hand went to his chest. For a horrible moment, I thought he was having a heart attack. Where did it go? He whispered. I looked at Rachel. She was crying now. Silent tears running down her face. Mascara starting to streak. Brandon had his hand on her shoulder, but he looked ready to bolt. That's what I'd like to know too, Grandpa, I said quietly. Mom was still standing, hands clenched at her sides. This is a family matter. We can discuss it later. Privately. No, I opened the folder on my desktop. We're discussing it right now. I pulled out the portable projector, set it on the table, pushed aside the mashed potatoes and stuffing to make room, plugged it into my laptop. The white wall behind Grandpa lit up with my first slide. Family investment opportunity. A case study in wire fraud. Dad's glass slipped from his hand. Sparkling cider spread across the white tablecloth. People started standing up. Uncle Greg and Aunt Jennifer, who'd been quiet in the corner. Cousin Stephanie and her husband. Mom's sister Patricia. They backed away. Slowly, then faster. We should go, Aunt Jennifer muttered. This is between immediate family. They left. Just walked out. The front door opened and closed 3 times. Car engines started. By the time the commotion settled, only 6 of us remained. Grandpa, Mom, Dad, Rachel, Brandon, and me. I advanced to the next slide. The bank transfer records, blown up large enough to read from across the room. August 14th. Grandpa initiates wire transfer of $475,000 as a gift to me. August 15th. Someone with access to the joint account transfers $474,800 to an external account belonging to Brandon Hayes. Brandon went rigid. Next slide. Rachel's Instagram posts. Dated and timestamped. August 16th. My sister posts from the Maldives. 2 first-class tickets from JFK to Mail. Purchased August 14th. Cost. $18,400. Rachel made a sound like a wounded animal. Next slide. The engagement ring. Zoomed in. August 20th. Engagement announcement. Ring purchased from Cartier Manhattan, August 19th. Cost. $32,750. Brandon stood up. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. Sit down, Grandpa said. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. Brandon sat. I advanced to the next slide. The forged power of attorney, with the signature highlighted. This document was filed with the bank on August 10th, granting Catherine Blake power of attorney over the joint account. The signature is a forgery. Notice the pen pressure inconsistencies here, here, and here. I used a laser pointer. The letter forms match my mother's handwriting, not mine. Mom was crying now too, but they were angry tears. You don't understand what we've been through. The medical bills from your father's surgery. Dad's surgery was covered by insurance, I said. I checked. The mortgage is current. I pulled the records. You had no right. I had every right. You stole from me. Next slide. Audio file. This is a voicemail left by Catherine Blake on August 28th to David Sullivan, attorney at law. I obtained it through legal discovery after filing a fraud report. I clicked play. Mom's voice filled the room. David, we already spent the first installment. If Austin finds out, he'll go crazy. We need to paper this over. Can you help us create some kind of, I don't know, legitimate explanation? Maybe a loan agreement or something? David Sullivan's response. Catherine, this is fraud. I won't be a party to it. You need to tell Austin the truth before this gets worse. Mom's voice again. You don't understand. Rachel needed. The file ended. Mom's face was pure devastation. I was trying to help your sister. With my money. You have a good job. You don't need. That's not the point. The words came out harder than I'd intended. The point is that Grandpa gave me a gift. A life-changing gift. And you stole it before I even knew it existed. You forged legal documents. You lied to him. You lied to me. And you gave me a $200 check like it was some kind of generous gesture when you'd already taken everything. Rachel was sobbing openly now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just needed. The wedding's in 6 months and Brandon said we needed to make the right impression, and I panicked. So you stole from me? It wasn't like that. What was it like then? She couldn't explain. Brandon stood again, this time with purpose. Lose my number, he said to Rachel. All of it. This family, this drama, whatever this is. I don't do this. He walked out. The front door slammed. Rachel screamed after him. Actually screamed. Then she turned on me. Mascara-streaked face blotchy. You just destroyed my entire life. You destroyed it yourself when you chose to steal. I hate you. She grabbed her coat, her purse. I hate you so much. She left too. Her car roared to life in the driveway, tires squealing as she pulled away. Dad sat motionless through all of it, staring at the cider stains spreading across the tablecloth. Finally, he stood. I'm going to bed, he said to no one in particular. He walked upstairs. We heard his bedroom door close. 3 of us left now. Me, Mom, and Grandpa. Mom was shaking. She sank into a chair, hands covering her face. I thought it would be okay. I thought you'd never find out. You thought wrong. Grandpa stood up. His hands were steady now, face set in an expression I'd never seen before. Grief, betrayal, anger, all at once. He pulled out his phone. Mom grabbed his arm. Dad, please, please don't do this. Think about the family. Think about Rachel's future. Think about. I am thinking about it, he said quietly. I'm thinking about how I trusted you, how I called you before I made the transfer, told you I wanted to help Austin, asked you to make sure he knew it was from me, that it came with love, and you took that trust and turned it into theft. Dad, he pulled away from her, dialed. Mom collapsed to her knees, actually collapsed, hands clasped like prayer. Please, please don't do this. I'm your daughter. I made a mistake. Please. This is Robert Blake at 847 Maple Drive in Bridgeport, Grandpa said into the phone. I need to report a theft. Mom started sobbing, the kind of crying that sounds like breaking. The police arrived 18 minutes later. 2 officers, one older, one younger. Officer Daniel Brooks, 23 years on the force, and Officer Nicole Kim, 5 years. I'd already prepared a folder for them, all the evidence, organized chronologically. They sat at the dining table, the turkey cold now, candles burned down to stubs, and went through everything methodically. Mr. Blake, Officer Brooks said to Grandpa, do you want to press charges? Yes. Are you certain? This is your daughter. I'm certain. He looked at me. And you, Mr. Blake? Austin, do you want to pursue this? I thought about Rachel screaming, Mom sobbing, the way Dad had just walked away. I thought about Brandon's dismissive exit, about ruined holidays and fractured family and all the years of Thanksgiving dinners that would never happen again. Then I thought about Grandpa's face when he'd made that toast, the pride, the love, the way he'd saved for years to be able to give his grandchildren something meaningful. Yes, I said. I want to pursue this. Officer Kim took notes. We'll need you both to come to the station tomorrow to file formal reports. We'll also need to coordinate with the bank and possibly the FBI, since this involved wire fraud across state lines. Mom looked up, face blotchy and swollen. FBI? Wire fraud is a federal crime, ma'am. She seemed to fold in on herself. The officers left around 11 p.m. Mom had moved to the couch, curled up like a child. I packed up my projector, my laptop, my evidence folders. Grandpa walked me to the door. You okay? I asked him. He smiled sadly. Last night before you arrived, your mother told me she'd given you my check. She said you'd thanked her. Said you were grateful things weren't as tight as you'd feared. Said the $200 would really help with your rent. The manipulation was breathtaking. And I believed her, he continued. Because why wouldn't I? She's my daughter. I raised her. I thought I knew her. I'm sorry, Grandpa. Don't be. You did the right thing. It's her choice to live with. He put a hand on my shoulder, the same hand that had taught me to tie my shoes, to cast a fishing line, to shake hands firmly and look people in the eye. When you thanked me for the $200 at dinner, he said quietly, I almost let it go. Almost convinced myself I was confused. My memory was faulty. Maybe I hadn't actually sent the full amount, because it was easier than believing my own daughter would do this. He paused. But then I looked at your face, and I knew you were giving me the chance to see it, to really see what they'd done. You were protecting me from living the rest of my life as their fool. My throat was tight. Last night you thanked me for $200, he said. Tonight you proved you're worth more than any amount I could ever wire you. I hugged him carefully, because he was fragile and 87 and the strongest person I'd ever known. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, Austin. Now go home. Get some sleep. I drove back to my hotel in the November rain. Checked my phone at a red light. 17 missed calls from Rachel. 6 from Mom. 4 voicemails I didn't listen to. I blocked their numbers. The next morning, Grandpa and I went to the Bridgeport Police Department, filed formal reports, signed statements. The detective, James Carter, 11 years in financial crimes, told us the case would take months to build. But it's solid, he said. Power of attorney fraud, wire fraud, possibly conspiracy. The evidence you've compiled is better than most of what we see from professional investigators. I am a professional investigator, I said. Just usually for corporations, not family. How does it feel? He asked. Going after your own family? I thought about it. Like justice. The fallout was immediate and comprehensive. By Monday, the story had leaked to local media, probably through the police report, maybe through one of the relatives who'd witnessed the Thanksgiving confrontation. Family Thanksgiving ends and theft charges ran in the Bridgeport Courier. Rachel's employer, a boutique marketing agency that prided itself on ethical brand building, terminated her on Tuesday. I know because she left me a voicemail screaming about it. I didn't listen to the whole thing. My parents' church community, St. Matthew's Episcopal, where they'd been members for 32 years, asked them to step down from their volunteer positions on the fundraising committee. Too much negative attention was the official reason. Brandon Hayes changed his LinkedIn status to single and deleted all photos of Rachel. His company website removed his bio for a week, then reinstated it with no mention of his personal life. The bank investigation revealed that David Sullivan, the attorney Mom had called, had actually reported the conversation to the state bar ethics hotline. There was a paper trail showing he'd tried to warn her off. That testimony helped establish intent. In January, federal charges were filed. Catherine Blake, wire fraud. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Forgery. Rachel Blake, accessory after the fact. Conspiracy. The FBI had gotten involved because the wire transfer crossed state lines and involved digital banking systems, which fell under federal jurisdiction. I gave a deposition for hours in a federal building in Hartford, walking through every piece of evidence, every database query, every screenshot. The assistant U.S. attorney prosecuting the case, Jennifer Torres, 14 years in white-collar crime, told me it was one of the cleanest fraud cases she'd seen. Most families who steal from each other hide it better, she said. Or the victim doesn't have the skills to document it this thoroughly. You basically built our entire case for us. I do this for a living, I said. Just usually not against my own family. She smiled sadly. How does that feel? Same question as the detective. Same answer. Like justice. The trial was set for August. Mom's attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal. I refused to participate in any agreement that didn't include prison time. Grandpa backed me. In the end, Mom pleaded guilty to reduced charges. 1 count of wire fraud, 1 count of forgery. Sentencing, 18 months in federal prison, 3 years supervised release. Full restitution of $474,800 plus interest and penalties. Rachel pleaded to conspiracy and got 12 months. 2 years supervised release, and was ordered to return the engagement ring. It had been sold by Brandon the week after Thanksgiving. She had to buy it back at auction for $28,000 she didn't have. She borrowed the money from an aunt. The ring was then sold at the court's direction, with proceeds going toward restitution. Brandon Hayes was never charged. Prosecutors couldn't prove he knew the money was stolen, though everyone involved assumed he did. He moved to Boston 6 months later. Dad filed for divorce in February, cited irreconcilable differences and the criminal actions of my spouse. The proceedings were quick and ugly. He got the house. Mom got nothing. I haven't spoken to any of them since that Thanksgiving. Blocked their numbers, blocked their emails, blocked them on every platform. My dad tried to reach out twice through intermediaries. Once through Grandpa, once through my cousin Stephanie. Both times I declined. I didn't want reconciliation. I didn't want apologies. I wanted them to understand that actions have consequences. That betrayal destroys trust. And that trust, once destroyed, can never be rebuilt. Grandpa and I have dinner once a month now. Usually over video calls, since Denver to Connecticut is a long trip. Sometimes I fly out to visit. We don't talk about Mom or Rachel. We talk about his maps, his career stories, my work, my life. In March, he set up a new account, transferred another $475,000. This time, it came with a letter. Austin, this is the gift I always intended to give you. Use it to buy a house, start a company, build something that matters. I know you'll do it right. Your mother asked me to do something wrong, and I was foolish enough to trust her. You showed me the truth, even when it hurt. That's the mark of real integrity. Love, Grandpa. I bought a house, 3-bedroom craftsman in a good Denver neighborhood, walking distance to a park. I have a home office now, proper workspace for my investigations. Sometimes I think about starting my own firm, but Sentinel Tech treats me well and I like the work. The 2nd bedroom is for Grandpa, for when he visits. The 3rd is empty. Maybe one day it won't be. Last week, I got a letter from Rachel. Handwritten. 8 pages, arriving in a plain envelope with no return address. It started, Austin, I know you'll probably throw this away without reading it, but I have to try. What I did was unforgivable. I was selfish and desperate, and I didn't think about what I was stealing from you beyond just money. I read the whole thing. Then, I fed it through my shredder, watching her words turn to confetti. Some people think forgiveness is noble. Maybe it is. But I'm not interested in being noble. I'm interested in being whole. And wholeness for me meant cutting out the people who tried to carve me up and sell off the pieces. They stole my money. They tried to steal Grandpa's gift. They almost succeeded. But I walked away with something they could never take. No matter how much they stole, no matter how many signatures they forged, I walked away owning myself. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.